Hey, what's up, Metal XS? It's me, John Dolmayan from System of a Down. It's nice to see you today.
Salut à tous, Metal XS, c'est l'essentiel de l'actualité métal et dérivé en quelques minutes, le tout en images, en musique et en interview. Metal XS est une exclusivité Refix by Crédit Mutuel, la plateforme de toutes les musiques, tous les talents en partenariat avec Art Force. C'est parti! Il est connu du monde entier derrière sa batterie depuis plus de 25 ans, mais le 3 juillet dernier, c'est un autre univers qui l'attendait à Paris. John Dolmayan, batteur du groupe System of a Down, s'est offert une parenthèse entre les deux concerts phénoménaux du groupe au Stade de France, les 2 et 4 juillet. Direction la boutique Album Comics by Momie, dans le 6e arrondissement, où le musicien a troqué ses baguettes contre un stylo, le temps d'une séance de rencontres et dédicaces.
On est spécialisé dans le comics américain en version originale et on fait aussi énormément d'achats de vieux comics. Et donc on va régulièrement aux États-Unis dans des conventions pour acheter du vieux comics qu'on ramène en France ensuite. Il faut savoir que John avait un magasin pour vendre lui aussi des vieux comics. Donc en fait c'est quelqu'un qu'on croise régulièrement sur des salons. Et donc l'année dernière à San Diego, pendant la Comic Con, en discutant, il nous a dit voilà, je viens faire mon concert à Paris et j'aimerais bien faire une séance de signature au passage. Et est-ce que vous pouvez me recevoir? Et bien sûr, on lui a dit oui.
Loin des scènes, John Dolmayan mène une autre vie dans l'univers de la bande dessinée. Propriétaire du magasin Torpedo Comics à Las Vegas, aujourd'hui exclusivement en ligne, il est aussi scénariste depuis 2021 de sa propre série, Ascencia, dont les couvertures ont été signées par des pointures du comics américain, comme Jim Lee ou J. Scott Campbell. C'est justement pour la sortie de la version française de ce recueil, réunissant les 12 premiers numéros de la saga, que Metal XS a pu le rencontrer aux côtés de ses fans, entre passion pour le métal et amour inconditionnel des comics. Cela fait maintenant 10 ans que John travaille sur cette bande dessinée, dont la version française vient de paraître. Qu'est-ce qui l'a poussé à se lancer dans ce projet?
Has it been 10 years already? Jesus Christ. It was actually a couple of years of just thinking about it, you know, like the concept, and then you start working out what the story is going to be, and it kind of has a life of its own, you know, like it just grows into what it is.
Quel a été le déclic, le moment précis où l'idée d'Ascencia est née?
You know the movie Armageddon? The Michael Bay movie? That was the movie that I first had the idea for Ascensia.
Armageddon. A Jerry Bruckheimer production, directed by Michael Bay.
And it was based on you know, as human beings, we know we're gonna die, you know, like we know life is finite, and we're gonna live, and one day we're gonna be gone. And that's a part of life. But what if something happened, like the meteor coming, and we knew all of us were gonna die at the same moment? Like, how would people react? Like, what would they do? So I was watching that movie, and I asked myself that question, like, what would I do? And then there's like a couple of other movies that inspired other parts of the story. For example, there's an element that comes to the Earth from this meteor that's going to destroy us, but it doesn't destroy us. And it lands on Earth, and it basically creates like a fountain of youth, you know? So now all the powers go there, the Vatican moves there. Like every strength and every billionaire, trillionaire, they're now residing in this place. And the rest of the world is still dying, you know? So it now becomes like a moral issue of like, what would you do to go there? Like, who would you abandon? Like, I have 3 children. Would I leave my children to live forever, or could I watch them die of old age while I'm still young? These are the questions that it starts to ask, you know?
Le 35e numéro paraît prochainement. Comment explique-t-il une telle longévité dans une série indépendante?
Yeah, it's either 35 or 36, you know, like something like that, which is a lot, you know, for an independent publisher. I have no distribution here in Europe, but I do have some distribution in the United States, which helps. And we sell about like 3,000 to 4,000 copies a month, which is, again, no advertising. I don't even post it on Instagram, you know. Like sometimes if a cover's really cool, I'll post it, but I don't really talk about it too much because I want I want people to find out about it naturally. You know, like let it build up on its own.
Depuis près d'un demi-siècle, le rock et les comics entretiennent une relation aussi intense que naturelle. En 1977, le groupe Kiss ouvre la voie avec un album de bande dessinée publié par Marvel. Co-marketing, on raconte que le sang des musiciens a été mélangé à l'encre d'impression. À la même époque, l'univers des albums et la théâtralité des shows d'Alice Cooper créent une passerelle rêvée avec le monde des comics. Depuis, plusieurs générations d'artistes ont investi le 9e art. Certains deviennent les héros de leurs propres aventures.
It's an honor to be here, guys, at Comic Con. I'm here to discuss our new graphic novel, Inked in Blood. If you have a question, just go ahead and raise your hand. Let's go with you first.
If you could describe the graphic novel in 2 words, what would they be?
Bloodbath.
D'autres créent de véritables univers narratifs, à l'image de Claudio Sanchez de Coed and Cambria avec The Amory Wars.
A lot of the records that I had put together then really sort of resembled my adolescent life, you know. And the characters of Coed and Cambria resembled my parents. And, you know, my dad was a recovering addict, and, you know, so a lot of the symbolism, the dragonfly in the story represents a syringe, and in the story, it injects Coed, the character, and he sort of turns into a monster, and the Cambria character turns into the shield, which for most of my young life, my mother sort of shielded us from the realities of the addiction. And so for me, it's like, I wonder, would things have been perceived differently had I just kind of come out there without the guise of the comic, but the disguise of the comic. But for the most part, I'm really happy because it allowed me to explore another thing I'd always wanted to explore, which was graphic storytelling. You know, I've always been a songwriter. I've been writing songs since I was 12 years old, but I always had this dream to do something big and grandiose. And the music and my insecurities allowed me to do that.
The dirt's now declassified.
Aujourd'hui, les comics liés au rock et au métal se répartissent en plusieurs catégories. Biographie dessinée, adaptation d'albums concept, séries mettant en scène les mascottes ou les membres des groupes, comics scénarisés directement par des musiciens, et univers originaux devenus parfois des succès mondiaux. Une preuve que de la musique au casque de la bande dessinée, l'imaginaire inspire en permanence de nouvelles formes de récits.
I give you the Umbrella Academy.
Le chanteur d'Iron Maiden, Bruce Dickinson, nous avait expliqué l'opportunité que représentaient les comics pour accompagner son Mandrake Project dans sa carrière solo.
I was thinking about comics as being a great way to be graphic with music, because music videos were getting really expensive to do and a lot of people weren't doing them, and I thought, well, maybe this is another way of giving a visual dimension, because I'm a visual kind of a guy. Even when I sing, I see things, you know. trying to put the things that I see into pictures would be interesting. So I was working on that idea, but then after 3 years of sitting on my ass in lockdown, you start to think in a lot more detail about things. So I came up with a whole world of 12 episodes, which is 34 pages each episode. It's like 300-400 pages of comic, which we're now doing. That's the cover. That's the CCXP. That's the Comic-Con little special edition. So we gave away the first half of episode 1 in there. So it's that's the first half of episode 1. Yes. Lots of story in there. Anyway, whoop, there you go.
Mais revenons à John Dolmayan. Son expérience de libraire de comics a-t-elle influencé sa façon de concevoir la série, notamment le choix des couvertures et la manière dont les lecteurs découvrent une œuvre?
Yeah, well, the covers are really cool. You got to have good covers. The artists that I've been able to get have been pretty amazing. Like if you think about who I've gotten to do covers for my book, from like Jim Lee to Frank Miller, J. Scott Campbell, Arthur Adams. I mean, it goes on and on. But I also look for kind of unknown artists on Instagram. And I have just as many covers from them as I do really famous artists. And I think that's part of the fun too. And we live in an era now where we can discover, whether it's music or art or sculpture or whatever it is, you can discover really amazing, talented people very easily, like with very little effort, And I've been lucky enough to discover some cool people, and they made covers for me.
Qu'il soit fan de System of a Down ou de comics, et probablement des deux, ils étaient particulièrement nombreux à se retrouver dans l'antre parisienne du comics US.
Je suis sur la mailing list de cette fantastique boutique album que l'on fréquente tous, en tout cas les aficionados de comics depuis sa création. Enfin, moi je me rappelle avoir 11 ans, 12 ans, donc ça commence quand même à remonter au siècle précédent. Et on venait ici, c'était l'escapade pour tomber dans les comics.
Déjà, je suis une énorme fan de System. C'est mon groupe d'enfance, je les écoute depuis la primaire. J'ai saisi l'occasion pour vraiment tout faire d'un coup et je voulais aussi voir pouvoir lire la BD qu'il a pu sortir parce que j'ai pas eu l'occasion de lire l'ouvrage et en même temps de le rencontrer directement, ça fait depuis très longtemps que j'attends ça.
Quand les gens rencontrent des artistes dont ils sont fans, ils ont des questions, ils ont des émotions, ils ont vécu des choses. Voilà, il y avait des gens qui étaient très émus, il y avait des gens qui avaient même du mal à parler pour exprimer ce qu'ils avaient. Et les auteurs ou les artistes sont assez généreux avec eux, ils prennent le temps, ils les rassurent, ils leur donnent des infos et voilà, c'est vraiment des moments qui sont très touchants et je pense très forts dans la vie d'un fan de pouvoir rencontrer comme ça des artistes qu'on aime.
Qu'est-ce que ça fait de rencontrer? C'était rapide, c'était bon, c'était génial, un grand honneur, un grand moment. Une grande joie. Les gars, ils ont fait un boulot formidable depuis leur création. Ils ont révolutionné tout un pan de la musique brutale et énervée. Ils ont été originaux jusqu'au bout et ils le sont toujours. Qui étaient là-bas pour leur premier concert de 2 concerts de cette semaine. Chacune des personnes était heureuse, ravie d'être là. Tout le monde, j'en ai parlé avec John justement, il disait, je dis putain, mais tout le monde était content. Nous on était dans le pit. Moi j'ai passé plus d'1 heure dans le pit au début. Tout le monde était à fond, mais les gens étaient heureux quoi. Et mais en fait après quand tu vois les images hallucinantes que tout le monde a vues et kiffent, des circle pit à gogo de tous les côtés du Stade de France. Tu vois les gens tout en haut des tribunes, quel que soit le côté du stade, tout le monde est en train de chanter les paroles avec le cœur. Et ça, j'ai dit à John, il a fait, mais oui, on le sent. Il a dit, on le sent sur le scène, je te jure, on le sentait. Évidemment qu'ils le sentent, mais ils le sentent vraiment. Et c'était ça un peu qui fait la différence avec plein d'autres concerts où les artistes sont formidables et où les fans sont complètement ravis et déchaînés. Mais là, il y avait autre chose. Et ça, c'est l'originalité, la spécificité et l'unicité de System of a Down.
Avant de se lancer dans cette aventure professionnelle, on peut imaginer que John Dolmayan a d'abord été fan lui-même. Avec quelle bande dessinée a-t-il grandi? Se sent-il plus proche de l'univers de Marvel Comics et Stan Lee ou celui d'Alan Moore?
Both. Like I love Stan Lee, especially his era of Fantastic Four and John Byrne's era of Fantastic Four, my 2 favorite timelines for the writing. But I love Alan Moore. Everything from Swamp Thing to V for Vendetta. Watchmen, in my opinion, is the greatest comic book movie adaptation as well. And of course the book was amazing.
The world will look up and shout, "Save us." And I'll whisper, "No."
But I'm also a big gaming fan, and you know, like Claremont. I mean, you could talk forever about all the amazing writers that are in comics. You know, I wish they would take some of those amazing stories and actually interpret them in the way that they were in the comics, in the movies, because they'd be fantastic. But they seem to kind of, I don't know, not do a good job of that, basically.
En tant que scénariste d'une série au long cours, comment travaille-t-il? Est-ce très différent d'un album indépendant qui se suffit à lui-même, dans la mesure où il doit anticiper les numéros à venir?
Well, this is like a ever-expanding world, and I'm inspired by things in everyday life that I incorporate into the stories. But I have like a general idea of where the story is going to go from the beginning to end. You know, I just don't know if it's going to be 10 years or 20 years. You know, but I have enough to keep going with it. And are you a fan of The Sopranos? I was a big fan of The Sopranos, except for one thing. There was never resolution. Like, there were a lot of storylines that had no resolution. That's the only thing that bothered me about that otherwise fantastic series, you know, which I've watched like 3 times, all of the episodes, you know. So what I do is I put a lot of things, and it seems like there's no resolution, but they all come together. So there's a reason for everything that's happening, or there's an effect. For example, in one of the issues that's in this book, there's a gun that's dropped in Bethany, which is like the city that surrounds Ascencia, you know? And a little girl gets the gun, but I never talk about it again. In issue 37, that becomes important. So that's the things that I like. It's like, oh shit, that was always a plan, you know? But it's 30 issues later, who's gonna remember that? I remember it, you know? And the people that are really into the book, they'll find those things. You know? Like, I know how the series is gonna end, you know? I know what happens to all the characters, but there's also, you have to leave room for development, you know? Like, it doesn't have to be that way. If I come up with a better idea between now and then, I'll change it, you know? But it's good to have some kind of a plan.
Comment parvient-il à tenir ce rythme d'écriture depuis 10 ans?
Well, it's not easy, you know, it's a lot of work. Luckily, when we're on tour, especially when we're on tour, I have a lot more free time. So I've been writing my second series, which is Dead Samurai. It's another book, not related to Ascencia. It's based in feudal Japan, and there's kind of like a zombie outbreak, but it's not really a zombie outbreak. It's more of a leprosy-based mental disease that makes human beings like not human beings anymore. So I made that like a mini-series, you know, so it's a little easier to handle. But now I have like 4 more mini-series for it. So of course, in typical fashion, it became a much bigger world, you know, and that's kind of what I do. I can't help it. But this is like Game of Thrones level big world. Lots of characters and very hard to follow. I feel bad for people that try to follow it, but I'm trying. It's also like the first 12 issues, this was the first thing I'd ever written that was published. So it was an exploration and an understanding. Luckily, I've got some friends that are in the business, you know, like Jim Lee gave me a lot of advice, and I did several drafts of the first script before it ever got, you know, went to the artists. You know, so I did have some help, which is nice, you know, when you have friends like Jim Lee that can help you.
Ascencia dépeint à la fois une utopie et une dystopie, en interrogeant ce que l'on serait prêt à faire pour atteindre l'immortalité et le monde que l'on laisse aux générations futures. Un peu à la manière de certains textes de System of a Down, considère-t-il que sa bande dessinée est, elle aussi, une forme de mise en garde?
Well, as the series progresses, it gets into like I touch on the Armenian genocide, because the story really goes from like 1912 all the way to like 2200. So some characters are alive the whole time, you know, because you can get younger actually in Ascencia. There's a whole part of it that is also about like how technology can backfire. You know, there's like almost a Terminator kind of event. So in my story, in my timeline, by the 1980s, everybody has robots. So, you know, you're cooking, you're cleaning, all that stuff is done by androids and robots, and you know, human beings don't do that stuff anymore. It'd be like the equivalent of everybody has a smartphone now, you know? Like, who doesn't have a smartphone? So it's that affordable. And then there's like I guess I'm gonna give away a little bit of the story. There's an internal plan to get rid of the rest of humanity, because they don't need the rest of humanity anymore. And they also don't want to just live in the city of Ascencia. They want to be able to go other places. But if you live in Ascencia and you say, oh, I want to go on vacation to Hawaii, maybe somebody has you killed, because there's a list of who's going to go to Ascencia next, you know? So they're kind of prisoners there. Yeah, they live forever, but they live forever how? You know, they're in this beautiful prison, you know? And you know, there's also infighting of philosophies where people that are in Ascencia, some of them believe it should be for everyone to use, and others are like, no, you have to conserve it, it's just for us, we're the elites. So there's that too, you know, and there's infighting happening between them for power. But like, it's one thing to have like two political parties fight for power over 5 years, 10 years. Imagine over 200 years. And imagine the enmity that grows and the hate, where you might even have a daughter and a father who hate each other, and they're both over 100 years old. So like the father-daughter relationship isn't even that important to them anymore. That happens in my book. I'm telling you, it's like this could be a 20-hour interview.
Existe-t-il, selon lui, un lien profond entre le métal et la bande dessinée? Si oui, quelle en est la nature?
Because we're nerds. You know, like, we're basically nerds. All of us. And we both have, well, all of us have passion for different kinds of art. But comic books appeal to a certain sensibility. It's about the heroic element, overcoming, having incredible power and not using it for evil. This is what's attractive about comics to most people. Superman, he could easily be the ruler of the world. What does he do? He serves the world. It's almost like religious in that way, you know? So, I find that most people that are in music are kind of nerdy. We spend a lot of time playing our instruments alone, you know, practicing and doing all that stuff. And let's face it, most musicians weren't getting a lot of girls when they were young. You know? So they had a lot of time to read comic books and play with toys, which I still do.
Là, il faut que je digère un peu ce qui vient de se passer. Ça vient d'arriver à l'instant, donc voilà. Ça restera sûrement une des dédicaces qui sera les plus marquantes de toutes celles qu'on a faites, quoi.
Une venue en marge de la musique qui, on l'espère, suscitera d'autres initiatives de cette envergure. Metal Excess sera au rendez-vous. Voilà, Metal Excess, c'est terminé pour aujourd'hui. On se retrouve très très vite pour un nouveau numéro avec toujours plus d'interviews et de contenus inédits. Un immense merci pour votre fidélité et n'oubliez pas de prolonger l'expérience métal sur fx.fr. Salut!